Hey everyone, and welcome to part 1 of the Flight Sim Private Pilot's License. My name is Dave, I'm your Flight Sim CFI, and in real life I'm a commercial pilot with a Group 1 IFR, which is a multi-IFR rating here in Canada, and I'm a current CFI candidate. Throughout the next few videos, you're going to be able to take your skills from a beginner Flight Sim pilot with no experience up to that of a private pilot in real world. There's a lot of great benefits to flying in a flight sim, and if you are looking at transitioning into the real world, you'll find that you will get some great background knowledge from flight sim that you can help expedite the process of getting your private pilot's license. We always hear that the minimum requirements are 40 or 45 hours depending on where you are, and it takes 60, 70, 80, even 100 hours to get your private pilot's license. We can minimize that by using our time either chair flying or even better flight sim flying. Now, let's say you don't even want to go down the real world flying route. This is going to give you the basics of learning how to fly an airplane properly and not just throwing yourself out there. You're going to be able to land the airplane properly, proficiently, and hey, you want to impress your friends and keep it nice and buttery smooth? This is going to help you do that. Learning the theory behind flying even just a simple Cessna 172 is going to be able to transition to airliners when you get there. A lot of questions come my way of, how do I do very basic things? Whether it be just flying the aircraft, how do I land better? Oh, I'm always landing right, I'm always landing left, and I'm always bouncing, I'm always rounding out too high. All these things we can learn, and we should learn in a smaller general aviation aircraft, and then make our way up to the airlines. There's a reason why we do that in the real world, and there's a reason why we would do that in the simulator. So I'm really glad to have you here. We'll have a great time. I'm going to condense everything so it's not as boring, but pause along the way and try things out. Okay, I can't give you controls and then I take control back. So pause the video, try what I've just shown, perfect it, then come back and move on. You'll find that everything links into each other. And today with exercise 1 through 8, which that's that. Now I'm going by the Transport Canada. I'm Canadian, I'm from Canada. So if you do want to look up the exercises, it's Transport Canada's Private Pilot License Guide. However, exercise 1 through 8, we're looking at taxiing, starting up the aircraft familiarization, and then we're looking at climbing, descents, and turning, which is kind of your lesson 8, but straight and level flight, turns, attitudes, and movements. That's kind of what we're focusing on here. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know down in the comments below if you'd like to see anything different, but I can't wait to see you along the way, and I'd love to hear how much of progress that you're making along the way. So please put it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and here we go with lesson 1 of your private pilot's license. All right, guys, so here we are in the cockpit of a Cessna 172 at CYTZ, Charlie Yankee Tango Zulu. This is Toronto's Billy Bishop Airport, and we're in X-Plane 11 today. And we're going to be jumping between X-Plane 11 and we're going to be jumping to Flight Sim 2020 as well. So that this pertains to both simulators, as they seem to be the top 2 simulators really at this time. So today is the first lesson, your PPL in the flight sim. And we're going to speed through a few things. There's a few things that we can skip that we normally would do on the ground and in person and in flight. And we would shorten up the lessons a bit, but we can condense this a little with the flight sim. There's a few things that you're going to have to figure out that I can't show you in person. Like taxiing, you're going to have to practice that on your own. But I'm going to show you how we do it. And I'm going to show you how we are going to get to a runway, how we'll start the aircraft, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it. In person, we would normally spend a lot of time on this, and you can practice it, and we would focus on starting the aircraft every lesson, things like that. So we're going to be dumbing it down a little bit. And anyways, we're in the cockpit now, so let's start. So lesson 1, what we're going to be doing is aircraft familiarization. We're not going to be doing walk arounds, things like that. We're going to be getting right into the aircraft. We'll talk about how to start it up, and then we're going to get right into attitudes and movements and straight and level flight. So how we're going to start up the Cessna 172, it's the same in any simulator or in real life. Your master switch is going to come on, okay? And normally what we would do in real life is we would lower our flaps, and then we would check our lights, which are all here. We'd go outside, and we would make sure that everything is working, everything's great. We would turn our lights off, and then we would turn the master off and do our walk around. However, we're going to omit that. So quite simply, how we're going to start this today is we would normally go half throttle, fuel pump, add our fuel, 1, 2. You don't even have to do this in the simulator. This is just real life, and we'd pull this out because it's a cold start. Half inch here. And then we would turn our magnetos right over. So as you can see, when I click, the key's changing positions. Well, each position, so we have off at the far left, we have right magneto, left magneto, both magnetos, and start. The only time you'd ever be on left or right is in the event of a magneto failure. We're always going to be on both. But for now, we want to start this. So we're going to have to crank it to the right. Now, a few things. Actually, Cessna 172 starts all. I fly Diamond aircraft primarily, so we keep that out and we advance that. However, we'll leave it like this. Also, if you have your, looks like there we go. Looked like there. Okay, now my yoke and stuff is connected. Okay, so throttle is just going to be open a quarter inch. Sorry, and then we're going to. So we're going to turn over the starter, and you can see everything start up. Now we're going to want to set the RPM here to 1,000 RPM. This is our RPM gauge, okay? So just a quick overview of this. This is called our 6-pack. We'll start with the 6-pack, and then later on in the training, we'll go to the G1000 as well, so you can see both, okay? So that notice that was there, I'll show you how we fix that. But so here we just have a clock, temperature. This here's our airspeed indicator, attitude indicator, altimeter, turn coordinator, and this also has an inclinometer down here, which we'll go into more about that later. This is our heading indicator. This is our vertical speed indicator, and this is our tachometer. Much like a car, shows your RPM. Now in a Cessna 172, since it is not a constant speed prop, it is a fixed pitch prop. This is all we base our power settings off of. We don't have a manifold pressure, and we can go into that in future lessons, but for now, this is much easier. Over on the left here, we have our fuel tank. Here we have our EGT, which is exhaust gas temperature, and this is our fuel flow. Over here is our oil temperature, oil pressure, vacuum. Again, we'll go into what a vacuum is. It's all part of the vacuum system. And our amps, which is all part of our alternator and battery. Down the side here, we have our nav 1, nav 2, and this is an ADF. Okay, so that is all of our instruments here. Down here, we have our circuit breakers. We only have a few. All of our light panels. We have our beacon, our land, our taxi lights. We can turn that on, our nav lights, strobe light, and pitot heat. So if you look at the side here, this is called a pitot tube. That's what gives us our bunch of different things, but vertical speed, airspeed, so the pitot static system. So the pitot is directly just for the airspeed here, but the static system is what we'd use for our altitude and our vertical speed. So that's a very important piece of equipment to know. Over here, this is our comms. So our comms are tied through this here. This here is called our GPS, much like your car. And this is simulating the Garmin GNS 530. Down here is the Garmin GNS 430, which is, they call it just the X-Plane 430. And this is our transponder. This is how we would show air traffic control where we are. It's called a secondary radar system, and they can see us on their map. Down here is our autopilot. over here, this is our ADF, which would then connect down here. But we will go over that in the navigation portion of our training. So how do we get all this stuff on? We got to get ready to go. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to turn our avionics on. Okay, our avionics are on. You can see our navs came to life here. And our 2 different GPSs came to life and our transponder came on. Now transponder VFR is always set to 1200 unless air traffic control tells you otherwise. I'd advise at this point, just fly uncontrolled. We'll put our flaps up. Okay, so flaps are up. We can see flaps are these things that would be hanging down when we want to add more drag, add more lift, and lower our stall speed so that we can land or take off. Every aircraft's a little bit different. So coming down here, just to kind of go through, this is our lights for our radio panel. This is for our glare shield lighting. This is our throttle, mixture, flaps, cabin heat. This is a little storage. Ooh, look at that, a little Easter egg. This is our trim. This is a microphone. This is a fuel shutoff. And this is our fuel tanks. So in a Cessna, since our wings are up high like that, everything is just gravity fed. We do have a fuel pump here, which we can turn off as a redundancy, but everything is gravity fed and it does a pretty good job at it. So we normally can just feed off of both. Some aircraft that are more low wing, that have to use a boost pump to get up, have a mechanical and electrical fuel pump to get everything, get the fuel up into the engine. Sometimes they'll burn solely on the left or right tank and not have a both option, or they'll burn more out of one or the other. So you can change what tank you draw from. You always want to have even weight in your tanks. So you can see that here, left tank, right tank. All right, so we are now set up to start our taxiing. If you've never taxied before, how we taxi is with these rudder pedals. If you don't have rudder pedals, like peripherals, then you're going to have to configure something in the settings, which you'll have to find another YouTube video on how to do that. And you can configure your settings to be on a twist on a joystick or through a controller or on your keyboard. However, if you're using a yoke system, I currently have the Cytec Logitech yoke, throttle, and rudders. So as you can see, as I move my feet, see how the rudders move? A lot of people don't know that that's how rudders move, and they think it's just the toes. Well, the toes are the brakes. Let's put that parking brake back on. The rudder in a Cessna controls the back. So you can see here. See when I move this? See that big rudder? However, on the ground, hey, you see that? That's Austin. He's the guy who made X-Plane. We'll get rid of him, though. However, in a Cessna, we have nose wheel steering. So this is connected to the nose as well. You're probably not going to be able to see it here. Oh, see how the nose wheel turns? So that's how we're going to steer when we taxi. We do have to use our yoke left and right, up and down, in direction of the wind for crosswind. However, we're not going to worry about that today. Actually, speaking of which, I'm going to go into our flight configuration, and I'm just going to manually configure a preset of CAV OK, which is clear air visibility OK, just so we don't have to deal with any winds, nothing. Okay. So we're going to release our parking brake, and with just a little shot of fuel, we'll start moving. Okay, we tap the brakes will stop us. Okay, makes sense. Okay, how do we know where we're going? First off, if you want to know which runway we need to use the runway where we have a headwind. The headwind is coming towards us. How do we know where that is? Well, we can check the ATIS, and we have to remember that the wind is reported to us so it's a magnetic heading. So your magnetic heading on the runway will match up with the wind direction. Is the easiest way to look at it. Okay, so let's go here. We have runway 26 and 8. We have no wind in this, so we're just going to use this runway right here. And this here shows that this is taxiway Foxtrot. Next thing, this line in front of us. This is called a hold short line. I'm going to come out of the cockpit here and look at it. The solid line is on the, well, here, I'll start, it's easier. The dashed line is on the runway side, so the active side. The solid lines are where you need to hold short. So before you enter a runway, you're going to stop not on, not over, but before the hold short line. You're going to make any radio calls that you need to make, and then you're going to make sure that your aircraft is configured for takeoff. So what's one thing that we didn't do? Here, our heading indicator, we want to match it with this compass. How do we do that? This here is going to change the heading. So we can see here that, oh, okay, we're at what? South is 180 degrees. I'd say we're at about 170 degrees because you have 15, 6, 7, 170, 170 degrees. So let's find that on our compass here and match it right there. So if you go in here, the big line is the whole number. So you have 150, 155, 160, 165, 170. So let's line that up. Perfect. Everything else is ready. Oh, what's our altitude here? The altitude here, if I'm not mistaken, is around this. It should be 292, just because we have clear air and visibility okay. So we want to set that to our elevation. Okay, so our altimeter is set. Nothing we have to set here. This, unless it's failed, will be fine. Our heading indicator matches with our magnetic compass. Vertical speeds level, everything is good. Okay, off the brakes, transponder comes on, we click the Alt, and we make our way into the runway. So, let's go to the left. Now we're going to take off without flaps. A lot of Cessnas do call for no flaps on takeoff. So we're just going to do that to minimize what we have to do when we take off. Now at this point, taking off isn't necessarily the easiest. It may be more difficult for you. So you can either start your flight up in the air or just muscle through it and get yourself up. This is a sim. You can make mistakes. You're not going to get hurt. Normally in the real world, we would take this time to take off as the instructor. And then once we're about 1,000 feet above the ground, the student can take over. So we taxi back. This is a huge runway, especially for a little Cessna 172. So why do we taxi all the way to the back? We always taxi all the way to the far end of the runway because you want to take advantage of the full runway that you have to your disposal. Why is that? Well, if we ever got a failure, I could close the throttle and land right on this runway. It's that long. Or let's say we haven't taken off yet and we have a mechanical problem. I can close the throttle and stop right where I am on the runway, and I have the room to do that. Whoa. That was interesting. I didn't know what caused that. Okay. So guys, we'll get a little bit more into checklists later on. I'm not worrying about that today. Today we're just going to get up and fly. So how do we get up flying at this point? Brakes are on. We're centered straight down the runway on the center line. What we want to do then is go release the brakes, full power, confirm that our tack is in the green. It'll be up around this red line here. We'll see our airspeed will come alive, and we want to keep our eyes right down the runway and keep ourselves in the center with our rudders. Okay, the trick is not to look here. Don't look at the ground here. Pick a spot on the horizon. Look, this is a difficult one. There's nothing in the horizon. There's no trees. Okay, so we're just going to pick the end here. And the luxury that we have with computer simulators, we can use our mouse. So let's put the mouse there, and we're going to fly to the mouse. Okay, feet come off the brakes. Smooth advance of the throttle. We're going to need right rudder. P factor and torque factor is going to make us want to go to the left. And again, no hands on there yet, right? You're going to keep a hand on, but we're not pulling back. Airspeed's alive. We're at 60 knots. We're going to rotate. Okay, we're now rotating. And now you can see we've lost the horizon. Okay, so let's have the nose down and let's just set it at a gentle climb. So put this right here, your windscreen. right on the horizon. That's going to be a fine climb. See, if I put that nose way down, we're not going to climb. And you can see that with our vertical speed indicator, we're holding altitude. Okay, but we want to climb. Line it up with the horizon. We don't need to worry about having a VX, a best angle of climb, or a VY, best rate of climb. We don't need to worry about that right now. Okay, and we're also not going to worry about the circuit. That comes later. Okay, we're just going to fly straight out. Okay, we're now at 1,000 feet. We're going to make a right-hand turn. This is technically not out of their circuit yet. 1,200 feet would be roughly, but we're going to make a right-hand turn and expedite this. Okay. And once we get straight here, we're going to start our lesson. So the first thing that we want to work on is straight and level flight. What is straight and level flight? Straight and level flight is exactly what it sounds like. We're flying at a constant heading and a constant airspeed and a constant altitude. So that would be straight and level. We're not decelerating, we're not accelerating, we're not climbing, we're not descending, and we're not turning. Okay? So here we are. Let's go up to 2,000 feet. I'll set up the aircraft and then we'll start our practice. So if you can, follow along. If you have me on a separate screen or an iPad or something, follow along. So we'll go 2,000 feet. Pause the video right now, get yourself set up at 2,000 feet. And if you see down here at the tachometer, anywhere between 22 and 2,300 RPM will be fine. Now, we'll advance here. So you're in the same position as me. I'm pushing forward on the yoke right now. What happens if I let go? I'm climbing. So you're saying I got to push forward the whole time? No. We use trim. Trim is down here, or if you have a SciTech yoke, it's attached to the A1, A2 toggle. Forward trims you down, and backwards trims you up. So what you want to do is trim out the pressure. It's really easy in real life because you can feel the pressure. In the simulator, you can't. So let's set our RPM. We'll set it for 2,200, okay? And we'll descend. We want to get back to 2,000 feet here. Actually, we'll just stay at 2,200, okay? Keep it simple. We don't need to waste time. Okay, 2,200 feet. And we're going to trim until our aircraft will pretty much hold that 2,200 feet. Hands are off. We're just flying that. Okay, it's showing a little bit of a descent on the vertical speed. Don't chase it. Just little corrections. Okay, little corrections. We're only losing 10 or 20 feet before we're back at the spot. Now, it is tough. In the simulator, it is tough. And don't beat yourself up if you can't hold 2,200 right on the nose indefinitely. Okay? But as you can see here, we are straight and level. How are we confirming that? We're at 100 knots indicated, not increasing, not decreasing. Our attitude indicator is level. Our altitude is stable. Turn and bank coordinator, stable. Heading, not changing. Here, let's bug the heading. And we'll see if we ever change. And guys, remember, I'm still hands off. Okay? When you set it up properly, you don't have to touch it. So what's happening here? We can see visually that we're turning a little bit to the right. Just correct. Little corrections. Vertical speed, it's showing right around the 0, but you got to remember this instrument lags. So don't chase it. Use it as a tool in the toolbox, but don't chase it. If it's showing down that you're descending, just wait. Because watch. See how I just started descending and it took a second? It took a second for it to catch up. Okay? So don't chase it. Little corrections. Okay, so we know that we can look at the instruments and that can tell us if we're straight or level. But what else? We're VFR flying. So visually, how do we know by looking outside the airplane if we're straight and level? Well, here we have our horizon. It's just above the water. It's a little bit tough there to see it, but our horizon is going to be in this area. Okay? Don't mistake the horizon for the level of the ground where it drops off at the water. Horizon is over here. Okay? We want our sight line, if we're looking straight out, this will be looking about straight out. 1/3 land, 2/3 sky. that would be the perfect straight and level attitude. Now this goes into attitudes and movements. So this is a straight and level attitude. We have 1/3 ground, 2/3 sky. And it doesn't matter if we move around. I'm not going to look at any of the instruments. Okay. If we go back to that 1/3 ground, 2/3 sky, we're going to be straight and level. So now if I check down on my instruments, minor corrections, we're straight and level. Okay. So I want you to practice that. Pause this video and try that. Hold altitude, hold heading, hold airspeed and everything. Now the airspeed is going to be controlled by your pitch. Like a car, when you hit the gas, you go faster. It's a little different in an airplane because we've set our power to 2200 RPM down here. So if I want to go faster, we'll play that theory, okay? Let's say I want to go faster and I just push the throttle to max. What's happening? My hands are off. What's happening to the attitude of the aircraft? If you can see, our nose is coming way up. Look at that. We have no horizon. Look at our vertical speed indicator. It's screaming. Our altitude is climbing. Our attitude indicator is nosed up. But look, what's our airspeed at? It's actually lower. It's lower than what it was prior to adding full power. Now watch this. I pull the power down. What's happening to the attitude of our aircraft? It's dropping. Our altitude's dropping, our vertical speed is dropping, but look at our airspeed. Airspeed's increasing, but we just pulled throttle out. So let's go back to straight and level flight here. So what does that tell us? That tells us that pitch controls our airspeed, throttle controls our altitude. And that's really important to remember, especially when we go further on and we practice our landings. So let's make a right-hand turn here. Now, while we're making this right-hand turn, I want you to take a look at one thing. Look at the horizon, okay? We can see the horizon a little better now. See where it intercepts the windshield here, the windscreen, and the dash. See how where that's intercepting? Now we can look. Oh, we're slowly descending. So how do we fix that? So we just have a little bit of back pressure here. So we want to remember this exact sight picture because look at this. This is a perfect 30-degree turn. Okay? And back to level. Okay? Now we're a little bit, we got a little carried away there, so we're going to make a right-hand turn. Okay? Or a left-hand turn, sorry. So left-hand turn. Now take a look at the horizon and where it meets the dash. That's another important thing to remember because this is what's going to keep our turns level. Okay? When we go into that part. So now we're going to fly a heading of south. Okay. So we're flying back to the south. Airport should be somewhere over there. We'll find it. Okay. Actually, no, it should be straight ahead. I think that's it right there. Yeah. Okay. So straight and level. We're back straight and level. We're all set up. Remember, 22 to 2300 RPM. We're a little bit low. There's 2200. That's good there. So attitudes and movements. What's an attitude? Well, we just went over that. It's our visual reference to the horizon. And it can be a straight, nose up, nose down, right? Now, what about when we're in a turn? That's an attitude, a turning attitude. But you can also mix that with turning attitude and nose up attitude, right? And we'll go into those a little bit later. Let me just pull up my notes here. Okay. So the first thing that we want to look at here with attitudes and movements, I'm going to show you stability, okay? Longitudinal stability. So in aircraft, we're set up here. I'm just going to show you something. If I pitch the nose up and let go, okay, we haven't changed anything else. I just pitched up. Watch what the aircraft wants to do. The Cessna 172, Diamond, all these trainer aircraft are very stable. So watch this. I hope this works in the sim. This could kill my demonstration, but in real life this works. So see how we went nose down, but now we're going back nose up. So if you think of this like an oscillation, we're going like this, then like this, then the next time it's going to be smaller and smaller until we're going to come to a point here eventually where there's no oscillation at all. But what I can show you is that our oscillations are getting smaller. They're not getting bigger. So if we just let this keep going and keep going, it will just go back to straight and level flight. What I want to show you there is that these aircraft want to fly in straight and level. They're very stable aircraft. Okay. So what the whole purpose behind knowing that though is to just know that you don't need to chase and set the aircraft up. Okay, once you set it up properly and you have the proper trim and the proper power settings, these planes want to fly straight. We don't want to be overcorrecting all the time. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is look at our attitudes, being attitudes and movements. So our first attitude will be a nose up attitude. So we're now back in straight and level flight, and that didn't take all that long, and you can see our oscillations now are very small. Okay, so a nose up attitude. We were talking about how we want 1/3 land and 2/3 sky. Okay, so that's our straight and level. But let's say we want to climb. If we put our nose to the horizon, we have a gentle climb. It's a minor climb. Very simple. We're going to get 400 or 500 feet per minute. If we raise that up a little bit more, so we just see how now we have the horizon intercepting about midway through the dash. I'm just going to add some power here. So we're talking a little longer than I thought. Remember, in a climb, guys, always full power. Now we're at a medium nose up. And full nose up, we have our horizon at the bottom of our windscreen here. So see how we always reference the horizon. Okay. So we'll go back to straight and level flight. And I want you to try that. Put yourself in a gentle, a medium, and a more aggressive nose up attitude. Next thing we'll do is nose down attitudes. So just the opposite. We'll set everything up. I'm not even going to change the power. I'll put it at 2200. We're at straight and level. A gentle nose down will be about, I'd say about 50-50. 50% horizon, 50% sky. Then we have a little bit more. And that would be a moderate. And then a major nose down is this attitude here. And you can see at this point our airspeed is climbing up. Pull our power back. And we'll keep our descent. All right, so minor, moderate, and major nose down attitudes. I want you to try that. The whole time making sure that you're keeping your wings level. Because if you start doing this and turning, now we're getting into, we could get ourselves theoretically into a spiral position. You know, see this? We're getting ourselves into a spiral. We don't want that. Okay, so back into straight and level flight. 2200 RPM, straight and level. Once you have straight and level, let me know, and we're going to turn back to the north. I'm just going to climb us up here a little bit. We can see our airport right below us. All right, we're going to go east, actually. We're going to follow the shoreline here. And we're going to do banks. So banks are turns. And there's three major types of turns. We have 10, 20, and 30-degree banks. Okay, and we can do that left or right. Now, how do we know what a 10, 20, and 30-degree bank is? If we look at our attitude indicator right here, these lines, 10, 20, 30. Okay, this is 45, and this is 90. So the big ones that we want to pay attention to is 10, 20, and 30 for this lesson. So 10 degrees, remember back to what we were doing at the beginning. So here's a 10 degree. Actually, let's get myself situated here. Okay. So 10 degrees, as you can imagine, is pretty gentle. You can see the horizon here. Once I get ourselves a little bit more stable, horizon's just kind of hitting the magnetic head, the compass here. And we're slowly making our turn around. Okay, and remember, if that horizon starts creeping down, then we got to correct. So watch. See how it's creeping down? We got to put the nose down. Let's say it's creeping up, then we got to put the nose up with back pressure, right? So this is how we are going to control this attitude and this movement. Okay, we're just gonna watch here, not down here. This is just a reference for us. Okay, then we'll go back to straight and level. Next, we'll do a medium or moderate turn. So now you can see it's about midway for the moderate turn. And again, hold that spot with the mouse. Let's not let that come off the mouse, okay? So see how now it's coming up? Our nose is going down. So now we just got to pitch up a little. Keep it at 20 degrees and leave it. And hands off. Unlike a car, I'm going to show you something here. Okay, when you make a turn in an airplane, okay, when you make a turn, it's tough for me to show you here, actually. Pull this. Okay, see the yoke, okay? If I hold, even if I give back pressure, if I don't let this go back to neutral, look what's happening to our airplane. See how I'm holding that turn? We're getting into a bad situation. Okay? So, this isn't necessarily the orthodox way of doing it. I'm just gonna get us back up there. So anyways, what we want to do is, if you're looking at here, we make our turn, we get to our 20 degrees, and then we return it back to neutral. See? See how this is neutral? And if I want to go to 20 degrees, you turn till you're there, or just before, and back to neutral. Okay, I'm doing a terrible job of keeping myself on the horizon, but just want to show you this, okay? So the same goes for the right. Make your right hand turn, hold it there, set your attitude, trim as required, and make your turn. So 10, 20, and then when we go to 30 degrees, look at the difference. Now we have to add a little bit of back pressure, but you see we're climbing there. So this is 20 degrees, or 30 degrees, my apologies. It's a little bit more than 30 degrees, but that's a 30-degree turn. A little bit descending. It's tough. It is tough in the simulator to be perfect, guys, okay? So just because you miss a lot of the feel. But do your best. As long as you're consciously paying attention to making sure you're not descending, you're holding the same attitude, you're not overbanking or underbanking, then you're doing well. Okay? So I want you to pause the video and practice that. Turns to the left and turns to the right. Next thing is yaw. So yaw is something that is undesirable. It's movement along the normal axis. So if you think of this, here, I can use my drone. Okay, so the normal axis would be right through here. So this movement, if the green screen is gonna work for us, that movement is yaw. Okay. So how do we correct it? Well, remember back to the rudder pedals, these guys down here? That's how we correct it. Now, certain things, power, like watch if I go full power. You see, it's very minor in the simulator, but this ball here is going to show our coordination. Now, I'm going to intentionally put us out of coordination. See that ball? See how it moves? That means we're uncoordinated. If there's a way to see us on the outside, see how sloppy the plane looks? How do we correct that? We step on the ball. So we use right rudder. So step on the ball and it brings it back into the middle. Simple enough. Different things that can cause that is so P factor is the big one. So that's like slipstream coming around the aircraft, hitting against the rudder, giving you adverse yaw. Also torque factor from the propeller, from the engine, yada yada yada. There's a lot of things that can control that. The biggest thing that you need to know though is we want to make sure that that ball is in the center, and we use a phrase, step on the ball or kick the ball. Okay, so we want to watch that. So practice it. Like I said, in the simulator, it keeps everything pretty coordinated, and honestly, in real life too, it stays pretty coordinated. So those are the big things with attitudes and movements. So we've done straight and level, and we've done attitudes and movements. The last thing we got to do is we got to put the airplane on the ground. Now, being a simulator, try it, give it. In real life, I probably wouldn't have somebody landing at this point, unless they have some sort of prior background or are really, really, really comprehending what's going on. But it's difficult, and don't try to be perfect. And this landing for me is probably not going to be anywhere near perfect. But we'll go through how we land. So I'm not going to do a circuit or anything like that. This is going to be very informal. But we're going to fly to that runway right here. That's the one we took off on. Runway 26. Okay. So we're just going to do a long final, and we're going to land. So a couple things while we're coming in. Look here, the white arc, that's our flap safe speed, okay? So we don't want to introduce flaps until we get to that speed. And if we look straight ahead, see these red dots here on the right hand side? Those lights there. They're called Papi Lights, and what they do is they tell us if we're on the right glide slope. So being all red means we're too low, technically. What you want to see is too red, too white. If you see all white, you're too high. Okay, easy way to remember, all red, you're dead. So we're going to just line ourselves up, and we're going to slowly decrease our airspeed. How do we do that? Attitude. Nose comes up. Our throttle's down because we want to... What do we want to descend? No, we want to stay up. We see all red. Keep the power up. Now we're at 90 knots or 85 knots. We can add our first set of flaps. That's done through here. I have it set up as B1 and B2 on the SciTech yoke. So we'll line ourselves up for runway 26. As we can see here, it's still showing as red. That's okay. We are kind of low. But now you can see our airspeed's dropping. Okay, that's because we just added flaps, but we never changed our attitude. So now we got to change our attitude. We got to be a little bit more nose down. The speed that we're looking for is about 75 knots. Okay, see that one white light there now? That means that so now two red and two white. That means that we're on the proper glide slope. We'll follow this in. And how are we going to descend? Power back. Okay, so we power back. We got to pitch for our airspeed, okay? So we're at 80 knots. We're a little bit fast, but we can get our second set of flaps in. See how now there's 4 white? I wanted to show you this. Now we're high. We'll add our last set of flaps. See our airspeed's dropping? Whoa, it's way too slow. We got to get that nose down. So look at how far nose down we got to get. But we also need to get down. So it's a fine balance between pitching and adding power, right? Because look at, we're 60 knots. We're pretty slow actually, but 65 is actually completely okay for coming in here. We'll add a little bit of power because we don't want to descend into the ground. Pitch up a little bit and see we're at the numbers here. We're aiming right down the runway. Now that the runway's coming close to us, we transition our eyes right down the runway. We slowly hold it off the ground. Power comes off. Nose comes up, and we just hold it here. Hold it here. Slight back pressure, back pressure, back pressure. Oh, greasy. Greasy. Hold that back pressure. See, I'm still holding back. I'm still holding back, but the wheel is down. And we just continue down the runway. So when you're coming in, it's a fine balance of back pressure and pitch. So pitch, I shouldn't say back pressure, pitch and power. And remember, power for altitude, pitch for airspeed. So if we have to pitch way down like this to get to 75 knots, we're now gonna land way early, okay? So we want to add power. So you got to balance between the two of them. And we'll go more into depth in that in our circuit lesson when you're learning how to land. However, for today, that is all. Good work, guys. Practice the straight and level, practice the attitudes and movements, and come back for the next one when we're going to go into, actually, let's see what we're going to go into here. I have my notes here. Next, we're going to be going into basic climbs, descents, and turns, and advanced climbs, descents, and turns. So we kind of did that today. So I'm going to say that we did all of that today as well. We did exercise 1 through 8. And next time we're going to go into upper air work, we're going to do steep turns. So this is really going to be expedited. It's not going to be the full 45 hours as per the Transport Canada guidelines. But take this lesson, break it down, and practice it as much as you can, and then move on to the next one. So thanks a lot, guys, for checking this out. And I hope you take something from it and become better pilots, both in the simulator or if you need extra practice for real life and in real life as well. Remember, guys, I'm not your CFI. I'm a CFI that's currently in training right now. So always consult with your CFI if you're looking to take this to the real world. Consult with them. Don't take what I have to say as gold. Just take it as a little helper. As always, guys, have fun, stay safe, and keep the blue side up.